Hi everyone, welcome back to the Under the Hood channel. This is part 3 of my tenure series. I'm going to be briefly discussing my thoughts on the teaching requirements for tenure. If this is the first video that you've seen from this series, it's official. I'm a tenured faculty at Berkeley, and I am super grateful once again to all of the people whose blood, sweat, and tears went into the work that was evaluated for my promotion. All right, so teaching requirements for tenure at an R01 institution are fairly straightforward, and it's really hard to mess this part of your evaluation up. Most of us have no formal training in designing or implementing courses, but most of us STEM faculty get experience as a graduate teaching assistant. Some of my colleagues have taken the time and the initiative to get teaching certificates, which is overall really good for the student experience. In general, there are not usually incentives to get teaching certificates or improve our teaching other than personally wanting to be more effective in the classroom. So in general, we are not rewarded for simply doing our job as instructors, but if you are a stellar teacher, a stellar classroom instructor, you will get rewarded through campus awards. One caveat, however, is that if you are a poor instructor, this will get you into trouble, either at the mid-career evaluation stage. So for instance, you may require some teaching remediation, and this may even lead to what we call a deceleration. So if there is an income increase associated with a merit step and then there's poor teaching evaluations, you may not get your merit because of poor teaching. So in short, you don't get praised for doing a good job unless you're absolutely stellar, but you can get penalized pretty harshly for being a poor instructor. So how will your department know if you're doing a poor job in the classroom? Well, usually this is through the reviewing of your student evaluations. So the scores you receive in the evaluation usually get compared to department averages or university averages. Although we all know that numerical scores really don't provide the nuance that's necessary for evaluating effective course management. However, it is a fairly standardized and easy way to evaluate someone's teaching. So enrollment numbers are going to impact this, and the extremes of the distribution will impact your scores. The comments that are left by the students, the open-ended comments, they also get reviewed during merit and promotion reviews. And this is where it's absolutely necessary for the reviewers to exercise nuance and discretion when they're determining whether or not the feedback is fair, warranted, or whether or not the comments should be flagged as abusive. In my experience, I have heard abusive comments in other faculty's evaluations, and in some cases they get removed, but in some cases, they remain in the evaluation file. In my opinion, vile and abusive comments should be removed from a candidate's case. As a caveat, again, unfortunately, women faculty and faculty of color absolutely have to be prepared for comments that reflect hatred of said protected characteristics. Sometimes the evaluations are simply not objective and they are not constructive. So this is a very well-known phenomenon that faculty with marginalized identities oftentimes are subjugated to harsh prejudices in their evaluation, and therefore student feedback should be taken and evaluated with care. Generally, most assistant professors at research-intensive institutions have to teach. And we have to teach at least one course per semester or quarter, depending on which system you work in. Some instructors, some faculty teach 2 per semester, or they may carry a 2-1 course load or double up in one semester. So if you check out the graphic in the slide, you'll see the breakdown of how the courses may be distributed. So doubling up in one of your semesters or quarters leaves a free semester, which is always great because you can focus more on research. Also, professors generally teach a balance of graduate and undergraduate courses. This is ideal for a balanced evaluation at the mid-career and tenure stages, but it's not always the case. So sometimes you're undergraduate heavy and sometimes you're graduate heavy, depending on the department's needs and depending on your skills. So for folks that are on the quarter system, if you have to double up one quarter, try to make sure that you're doubling up in the winter quarter so that your free term is consecutive with your summer break. You don't want to break in the winter because it only gives you a 3-month break instead of a 6-month break. And you can thank me later. Also, on the quarter system, it could be advantageous to double up with a course that is largely led by the TAs, like a wet lab course, and so this is going to make your time management a little bit more manageable. And I do want to discuss briefly summer school. We are not required to teach in the summer, but some professors will opt to teach in the summer because it pays a little bit of extra money. As a note, our pay as academic faculty is aligned with a 9-month or an 8-month academic year. Regarding special topics, sometimes your department will require you to teach a 1-unit course every conflict or semester, which counts over time over the whole year as one entire course. So special topics courses may be a little bit time consuming, but they can be more flexible in terms of the content you have to teach or that you're allowed to teach. On the contrary, teaching an ABET course, which is required for the department or the degree's accreditation, means you have to have more record keeping that's involved in the course because the data involved in that ABET record keeping gets pushed into the 6-year evaluation report. As a note, having a teaching assistant really helps when you're teaching, but this is only possible when your course enrollment meets the threshold for teaching assistants. So for instance, if you're teaching several small courses over the year, that means that you're going to have less help in the classroom. On the other hand, if you are teaching a large class, you may have more teaching assistants, but you'll have to manage lots of emails and just a larger volume of work. So pick your poison, I guess. If anything in this section of the video is unclear, feel free to drop a comment in the chat and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So now I will specifically talk about my pre-tenure teaching, which in all honesty is a bit of a pain point. Since I moved institutions after year 3, I did quite a bit of teaching to satisfy the performance reviews at both institutions. So if you're watching this, you'll see a graphic on the screen that shows all of the courses that I taught, okay? The enrollment for these courses ranged from about 10 for the special topics courses to about 120 for one of my thermodynamics offerings. 11 of the 12 courses you're looking at were taught pre-tenure, okay? The air pollution engineering course is the first course that I will be teaching post-tenure. The blue courses were taught at UC Riverside, the brown courses were taught at UC Berkeley, and the purple course was developed and taught during my postdoc at UNR. The star means that I developed the course from scratch. So 8 out of the 12 courses you're looking at were developed from scratch. And for new faculty, yes, the first offering for each one of these courses was rough due to the sheer amount of time that it took me to personalize the course material and get acclimated with the flow of the course. So if at all possible, please keep your course assignments the same every year before you get tenure. With that, I wish all of the junior faculty that are listening to this video good luck. Be sure to give yourself grace in the classroom to make mistakes because Mistakes will be made in front of the students. As long as you're genuine and you truly care about student success, you should do a great job. So thanks for listening, and I will see you in the next video.